aftermath of the 1981 season, the organisers FISA met with the Formula One Constructors Association to hammer out some new technical rules for 1982. There were two main issues to address. Firstly, in an attempt to render the ground effect cars of 1979 to 80 safer, FISA had banned sliding skirts and mandated a 6cm ground clearance for 1981. However, thanks to the trick suspension Brabham developed early in the season, swiftly copied by everyone else, the teams easily circumvented the regulation and, moreover, the resulting hard-sprung cars were causing severe discomfort and pain to the drivers. To this problem, FISA simply reversed the skirt ban and the clearance rule, meaning that teams are once again able to produce wing cars sucking themselves onto the track. The second issue was over turbocharged engines. Ferrari and Renault had developed incredibly powerful engines hamstrung only by reliability and, in Ferrari's case, the awful chassis. If these two issues could be sorted out, and the two teams along with Brabham and BMW would be working flat out to do just that, then turbo engines, which most teams couldn't afford, would be unbeatable. FOCA wished FISA to ban turbocharging, or at least introduce some limits to level the playing field, but the organisers declined. This seemed to the FOCA teams to be a political move rather than anything to do with safety or competition. Both established turbo teams were large, manufacturer-led works teams with large budgets and not members of FOCA, which was primarily dominated by mostly British independent racing teams. The so-called FISA-FOCA war that had seemed to be in abeyance for most of 1989 looked over the winter like it might be back on. With a large number of teams competing for grid slots, FISA decided also to increase the number of entries permitted in a Grand Prix from 30 to 34, with a pre-qualifying session to weed out the slower cars for the main session, as well as increasing grid sizes to 26 cars, except for the narrow confines of Monaco, which would continue to only have 20 starters. One last regulation was introduced too, with tyre manufacturers Avon, Michelin and Goodyear now producing special super sticky qualifying tyres that would only last a couple of laps. FISA limited the number of sets permitted per session to stop things getting ridiculous. Many of the drivers and teams weren't convinced of this, with Gilles Villeneuve opining that it might prove dangerous by encouraging drivers to take risks to set a good time on a limited number of laps. The South African Grand Prix returned to the calendar in its traditional January slot, and would, as previously, be a bit of an outlier, taking place months before the next race, and with many teams still working on 1982 cars, perhaps not having finalised driver lineups and so on. The Long Beach race was put back to April following the South American Tour, and the USA would have 3 races, with a street circuit in the Motor City of Detroit in June, as well as a return to Caesars Palace for the season finale. The Canadian Grand Prix was also moved earlier in the year in a search for better weather. Both the British and French Grand Prix moved venues as part of their regular rotation, the former to Brands Hatch and the latter to Paul Ricard. But the owners of the Dijon circuit decided to capitalise on French interest in Formula One and the precedent of the San Marino Grand Prix to host a second French race dubbed the Swiss Grand Prix, the first Swiss Grand Prix since World War II. Brabham's new BT50 chassis with its BMW turbo engine made its debut in practice for last year's British Grand Prix, and Gordon Murray and the boys from Bavaria have been beavering away ever since to get the car ready for what, it transpires, will be Nelson Piquet's title defence. While testing looks good in terms of speed, the car has been having problems with its gearbox. It's the same unit they've been using since 1976, and it doesn't seem to be handling the increased power output well. Still, the team are optimistic that the season opener at altitude in South Africa will suit the new car and allow them to get a good result under their belt. Piquet seems to be philosophical in interviews that 1982 will be a development year and is playing down his title prospects, but we've seen over the last few years that the young man from Rio has the knack for putting together good results when least expected. Riccardo Patrese was cleared by an Italian court late in 1981 of culpability in the 1978 accident that killed Ronnie Peterson, so his move to Brabham after 5 years with the smaller Shadow and Arrows teams is a fresh start in more ways than one. His good qualifying performances may well be what attracted Bernie, and hiring an Italian will please main sponsor Parmalat, but whether he has the character to prosper in a top team we shall see. With the talented Chiva moving on, Ken Tyrrell will be leaning heavily on Michele Alboreto stepping up into the lead driver slot for 1982. Alongside him, in comes Slim Borgood after a surprisingly good season with ATS last year. The 011 chassis introduced at the German Grand Prix had proven improvement over its predecessor and was updated for the 1982 season with bigger side pods to make the most of the restored ground effect rules. Avon tyres are replaced with Goodyears and the cars are back to traditional Tyrrell blue, with, once more, a depressing lack of sponsorship logos. Michele Alboreto steps into the lead driver role after not even a full season, but although he didn't get much chance to show it in 1981, he's a promising young man. Ken Tyrrell has a good eye for a driver and will be hoping Michele can be another Jackie Stewart or Jody Scheckter. Slim Borgard seemed to almost fall into racing by accident, buying a one-off ATS drive almost as a wish fulfillment thing, only to turn out to be a fairly decent racer and a safe pair of hands. He may have inherited his sole point at Silverstone in an attrition-heavy race, but that's how small teams score points. Ken and Slim will both be hoping for more of the same. Willliams have spent the winter pursuing two dead ends. First of all, in spending several months trying to unsuccessfully persuade Alan Jones to reconsider his retirement. Secondly, the team were working on a six-wheeled car to replace the ageing FW07 chassis. The FW08B, seen here being demonstrated at Goodwood Festival of Speed, was coming along nicely, but according to Patrick Head, quote, someone in a FOCA meeting said it would drive up costs and cause chaos during pit stops, and the FIA made a ruling that cars must have four wheels, only two of which could be driven. So the team start 1982 with the FW07, working on a more conventional version of the 08 for later in the season. With Carlos Reutemann still on board, Frank Williams turned to an unexpected face, Keke Rosberg. Carlos Reutemann had left everyone scratching their heads at the end of 1981 after his title tilt ended up in a bit of an anticlimax, then announced that he might retire, or he might not. It was clear he was waiting to see what Jones would do, and we will see how he copes now with being the undisputed team number one. Keke Rosberg can't have been optimistic for his future at the end of 1981, downsized by the Fittipaldi team after a pretty dismal season. He's never had a good car, Wolf, Shadow, Fittipaldi, so is still a bit of an unknown quantity and presumably can be expected to be a dutiful and solid second driver. The successful MP4-1 continues into 1982, updated to B-spec, and with the same venerable Ford DFV engine in the back, though there remain persistent rumours of some kind of secret turbo program. The big news, however, is the driver lineup, with double world champion Niki Lauda returning after 2 years off to rejoin his 1978 teammate John Watson. The return of Lauda has been the main topic of conversation leading up to the South African Grand Prix, though some question his motivation amid rumours that his airline was running into financial difficulties and Niki was being extremely lavishly compensated for his time. Figures of up to $3 million a year have been quoted. In any case, the team seems to be starting to turn a corner after some pretty lean years. John Watson had done about as well as could be expected in 1981, although outperforming Andrea de Cesaris wasn't a high bar to clear, with a win and several podium places. He's been around the block a few times by now and has added a patience and wiliness to his game which have served him well. One of Formula One's major stars of the 1970s, Niki Lauda began his Formula One career with March, then BRM, before being picked up by Ferrari in 1974 on the recommendation of a former teammate, Clay Regazzoni. His career was defined by his duels with McLaren's James Hunt during the mid-1970s, taking the 1975 and 77 championships, with Hunt victorious in 76 after the fiery crash that left Lauda with a badly burned face. Moving to Brabham for 1978 proved disastrous, and he walked out on the team 2 races before the end of 1979. Since then, he's been indulging in his other passion, flying, with his airline Lauda Air. The small West German team had a solid if unspectacular 1981, with a point for Slim Borgard at the British Grand Prix the highlight. For 1982, colourful owner Günther Schmidt has reorganised the team in a major effort to improve results. Briton Peter Collins has been brought in as team manager, and the team has expanded again to 2 cars. This was financed with the signing of well-backed Chilean Eliseo Salazar, who thus gets first dibs on any new kit, to partner Manfred Winkelhock, who was part of a partnership with BMW that Schmidt hopes might lead to an engine deal. Born in Weiblingen near Stuttgart in 1951, Manfred Winkelhock was another of the breed of mechanics-turned-drivers who came to single-seat racing relatively late in life. Picked by BMW for their Formula 2 youth team on the strength of winning the 1976 German Volkswagen Scirocco Championship, Winkelhock would drive alongside Eddie Cheever and Mark Sierra for BMW and other BMW-powered teams in Formula 2, and came 4th in 1978 and 1980. In 1980 he got his first chance in Formula 1, substituting for the injured Jochen Mass at Arrows, but failed to qualify the car at Monza on his only appearance, before returning to F2 and gaining notoriety for spectacularly flipping his car at Quiddelbach on the old Nürburgring. Nonetheless, with backing by BMW, he was able to have another attempt at F1 with ATS at the age of 31. An up-and-down 1981 had seen the Chilean start the season with the underfunded and ill-prepared March team, before jumping ship to Ensign, doing a little better with a brace of 6 places. His personal Copec sponsorship made him an attractive target for many teams at the bottom end of the grid, particularly as he was also a reasonably reliable driver who stayed out of trouble. For 1982, ATS came calling as Günther Schmidt redoubled his efforts to make a success of the team, and Salazar's sponsorship dollars would be the key to the plan. The illustrious team had a pretty ordinary 1981 and had spent the winter working hard on upgrading the 87 chassis, as well as designing a new car for later in the season. Elio De Angelis, who had been rumoured for a move to Alfa Romeo, stayed on in the end alongside Mansell, and of the two he seems the more likely to do well at the moment, even if he does throw the odd tantrum when things aren't going his way. Still, the team scored reasonably regularly in 1981 and will be hoping to continue without distractions like the 88 saga. Elio De Angelis had done his best with the machinery available in 1981, often scoring in the lower points but unable to step onto the podium like his teammate Mansell did. However, he's also shown a tendency to fade away or have a strop if outside factors such as mechanical difficulties or car legality made his life difficult. If he could curb that petulant streak, De Angelis had the opportunity in the right equipment to be a true star. Nigel Mansell's first full season of F1 had been a mixed bag. Generally outclassed by De Angelis, he had nonetheless put in some great drives, in Zolder and at Caesar's Palace, and shown himself to be a gritty, tenacious driver. Although not highly rated by all at the team, Mansell had become a protégé of Colin Chapman himself, and was given time to learn from Elio and see what he could do in a better car. Mo Nunn's little team, just 12 personnel, continue into 1982 with a new driver, well-heeled Colombian Roberto Guerrero, and a new car in the pipeline, though they'll still have the old one in South Africa. The team got a respectable 5 points in 1981 and will be hoping to build on this in 1982. Guerrero may be a pay driver, but he's also highly regarded among those in the know. Born in Medellin as the son of an Olympic cyclist, Roberto Guerrero had his first taste of karting at the age of 12 and almost immediately won 2 national championships and came third in the 1975 Pan American Kart Championship. Like many South Americans, he next headed to the Jim Russell Driving School in England. He won 5 of his 6 school races and came second in the other one. Continuing into Formula Ford, then Formula 3, in 1980 he overcame indifferent machinery to win 5 times, finished joint second in the British Championships. For 1981 he moved into European Formula 2 with the Maurer team, where he struggled a little more at first but managed a huge 41-second win at Thruxton and came 7th overall, which brought him to the attention of Mo Nunn, who gave him a drive for 1982. Renault have spent most of the winter working on the reliability of the RE30 chassis, again updated for the 1982 regulations and with a more elegant nose section. The engine was further tuned to squeeze out a few more horses, but the main thrust of testing was lapping away to work out all the technical kinks. There was continuity in drivers too, with Prost and Arnoux hoping to carry late 1981's form through to 82, with a bit of extra luck in Arnoux's case. Prost was one of the revelations of 1981, winning 3 races in only his second full Formula 1 season, and if only the car had been reliable from the get-go, he would have been a serious title contender. As it is, he must be a title favourite in 1982, much to the chagrin of his more experienced teammate. The unfortunate Arnoux had been very unlucky in 1981 with breakdowns and accidents, but he was also consistently outperformed by Prost when he was running. René is said to be unhappy to be overshadowed by his young teammate, and there's something of a personality clash too, so he's got a lot to prove in 1982. After a pretty dire 1981, March had lost both their only driver, Derek Daly, and almost all their sponsors. They would arrive in Kyalami with a one-off title sponsorship by Rizla in the hopes of having something more permanent sorted out by the time the main season began. To help with this, the team have signed up veteran Jochen Mass on a one-race deal to try and get some coverage and hopefully a good result. In the other car, Brazilian rookie and ex-McLaren test driver Raul Boesel would hope that the new 821 chassis would be as reliable in the season as it had been in winter testing. Bavarian Jochen Mass was a veteran of 8 Formula One seasons before pitching up at March. He made his debut in 1973 with a couple of appearances for Surtees, followed by a full season with the team in 1974. Despite not managing any points or many finishes, he was picked up by McLaren for the final 2 races as champion Emerson Fittipaldi's teammate. He went on to partner the Brazilian full-time in 1975, during which he won the Spanish Grand Prix, a race overshadowed by Rolf Stommelen's terrible accident, then had the thankless task of partnering James Hunt in 1976 and 77. After being dropped by McLaren, he went to ATS in 1978, then 2 years at Arrows, but sat 1981 out unable to find employment. Well-heeled Brazilian Raul Boesel had begun life as a show jumper, winning state championships before heading to university to study engineering. However, he gave up his degree in 1979 to enter the inaugural Brazilian Stock Car Championship before taking the route to Britain that many young Brazilians, inspired by Emerson Fittipaldi, followed. Formula Ford 1600 and Formula 3 followed, and in 1981 he finished third in the F3 Championships and got himself a test with McLaren and a full-time drive with March courtesy of his personal sponsors.